Maya Rodriguez wiped the tears from her eyes as she stood in the hospital supply closet, her third breakdown that week. The eviction notice crumpled in her scrub pocket felt like a boulder against her chest. 26 years old, drowning in student loans, working double shifts at Mercy General Hospital, and still she couldn't afford to keep a roof over her dying mother's head. The irony wasn't lost on her. She spent her days saving lives while watching her own fall apart. But Maya didn't know that in exactly 14 minutes, her entire world would change forever because of a man in room 307. She splashed cold water on her face, straightened her shoulders, and returned to the oncology ward. That's when she first saw him, Thomas Bennett, 72 years old, stage 4 pancreatic cancer, sitting alone in his hospital bed staring at a photograph. No visitors, no flowers, no cards, just silence and the steady beep of monitors marking time he didn't have. "Mr. Bennett?" Maya knocked softly on the door frame. "I'm Maya, your night nurse. How are you feeling?" He looked up, his weathered face creasing into a gentle smile. "Better now that someone's actually asking." His voice was warm, cultured, with the kind of wisdom that only comes from living fully. "Most folks just poke their heads in, check the machines, and leave. You're the first one who's looked me in the eye." Something in his loneliness echoed her own. Maya stepped inside. "Well, you're stuck with me for the next 8 hours, so we might as well be friends." That night began a ritual that would span 3 weeks. During her rounds, Maya would spend extra time in room 307, time she didn't have, honestly, but something about Thomas pulled at her heart. He told her stories about his late wife, Eleanor, who'd passed 2 years earlier. He spoke of their travels, their dreams, their 50 years of marriage. He never mentioned money, never talked about business. He was just a widower who missed his wife and faced death alone because his only daughter lived in Singapore and couldn't travel due to her own health issues. "What about you, Maya?" he asked one evening, his eyes sharp despite the morphine. "What's got those worry lines etched so deep in such a young face?" She found herself telling him everything. About her mother's Alzheimer's, the medical bills, the eviction notice, the impossible choice between her mother's care facility and keeping their apartment. She told him about her student loans, about working 70-hour weeks, about feeling like she was drowning while everyone around her kept breathing. "I became a nurse to help people," she whispered, her voice cracking. "But I can't even help myself." Thomas listened without interruption, without judgment. When she finished, he simply took her hand. "Eleanor used to say that angels walk among us wearing scrubs. I think she was right." 2 days later, Thomas's condition deteriorated sharply. The doctors gave him weeks, maybe days. Maya found him struggling to breathe one evening, panic in his eyes, not from the cancer, but from something else entirely. "Maya," he gasped, gripping her hand with surprising strength. "I don't want to die alone. I don't want to die without family." His voice broke. "I know this is insane. I know I have no right to ask, but could you marry me? Just for these last days? I just need someone to be there when I go. Someone who cares." Maya's heart shattered. Here was a man facing the abyss, his only wish to have someone hold his hand in the darkness. How could she say no? Money, propriety, logic, none of it mattered in the face of such raw human need. "Yes," she heard herself say. "Yes, I'll marry you." They married in his hospital room 3 days later. A chaplain officiated. 2 nurses witnessed. Maya wore her scrubs because she came straight from a shift at another hospital where she'd picked up extra work. Thomas wore his hospital gown. There were no rings, no flowers, no celebration. Just 2 souls offering each other comfort in the storm. "Thank you," Thomas whispered after the chaplain left. "You've given me the greatest gift, dignity in death." Maya visited him every day, even on her days off. She held his hand, read him books, played his favorite music. She told him about her mother's good days, and he listened like every word mattered. Hospital staff gave her strange looks. Whispers followed her down hallways. She didn't care. Thomas had become more than a patient. He'd become family. 2 weeks after their wedding, Maya arrived for her shift to find Thomas's room empty. Her heart stopped. A nurse touched her shoulder gently. "He passed this morning, honey, peacefully. He was asking for you." The grief hit her like a physical blow. She'd known this was coming, but knowing didn't make it hurt less. She'd grown to love this kind, gentle man in their brief time together. She stood in the empty room, tears streaming down her face, and whispered goodbye to her friend. The hospital administrator found her there an hour later. "Mrs. Bennett?" The formal name startled her. "I need you to come to the executive conference room. It's about your husband's estate." "Estate?" Maya followed in a daze. Inside the conference room, she found a team of lawyers, the hospital's CEO and Thomas's attorney. "Mrs. Bennett," the attorney began, sliding documents across the polished table. "Did your husband tell you who he was?" "He was Thomas," Maya said simply. "He was kind. He was lonely. He was my friend." The attorney exchanged glances with the others. "Mrs. Bennett, Thomas Bennett was the founder and majority shareholder of Bennett Healthcare Group. This hospital, along with 47 others across the country. He was worth approximately $3.2 billion. The room tilted. Maya gripped the table. "What?" "And he left everything to you," the CEO added quietly. "The entire estate. Every hospital, every investment, every penny. He changed his will the day after you married him." Maya couldn't breathe. No, that's impossible. I didn't marry him for money. I didn't even know." "We know," the attorney said gently, pushing a letter toward her. "He knew that too. That's why he left you this." With trembling hands, Maya unfolded the letter, written in Thomas's shaky handwriting. "My dearest Maya, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I hope I went peacefully with your hand in mine. You married a dying stranger because he asked. You showed up every day not because you had to, but because you cared. You saw a lonely old man when everyone else saw a patient. You gave your time when you had none to give. You gave your heart when you had every reason to protect it. Eleanor and I spent 50 years building something meaningful, hospitals that heal, that care, that see patients as people. When she died, I couldn't bear to continue alone. I was ready to let it all crumble. Then you walked into my room and reminded me what it was all for. You are the embodiment of everything these hospitals should be: compassion, selflessness, genuine care. I'm not giving you money, Maya. I'm entrusting you with my life's work. Use it to help people the way you helped me. Save your mother. Pay your debts. Then save others. This isn't charity. It's inheritance. You earned it by being exactly who you are. Thank you for letting me die, loved, Thomas." Maya pressed the letter to her chest and sobbed. For Thomas, for the impossible gift he'd given her, for the trust he'd placed in someone he barely knew. Around her, the lawyers waited quietly. When she finally looked up, her eyes were red but clear. "He trusted me with this?" "He did," the attorney confirmed. Maya straightened her shoulders, that same gesture she made every day before starting her shift. "Then I better not let him down." 6 months later, Maya stood in the lobby of Mercy General Hospital, now Bennett Memorial Hospital, watching as workers installed a new sign, "Where every patient matters." Her mother lived in the finest care facility in the state, surrounded by attentive staff and beautiful gardens. Maya's student loans were paid. But more importantly, she'd transformed Thomas's hospitals into models of compassionate care, increasing wages for nurses, implementing patient advocacy programs, and creating funds for families who couldn't afford treatment. She'd learned that wealth wasn't meant to be hoarded. It was meant to heal. Every day, she carried Thomas's photograph in her pocket next to one of Eleanor. And every day she tried to live up to the faith a dying widower had placed in a struggling young nurse who'd simply shown him kindness when he needed it most. Because in the end, that's all any of us really need. Someone to see us, to care, to hold our hand in the darkness. Thomas had given her the world. But she'd given him something money could never buy: dignity, companionship, and love in his final days. And that, Maya finally understood, was the greatest inheritance of all.